Chapter 22, 24 Hours in Nowhere, 2 p.m. Matthew, Rossi, and I sat in the waiting room quietly together until Matthew started to nod off and fell forward out of his chair. He got back into it, and we giggled together. Matthew rubbed his head where he'd hit it on the tiled floor. I want a bed, he complained. I could sleep for days, I said. I can't believe we have to go to school in the morning. I can't believe, Rossi began. Then she got up out of her chair and limped to a man who had just come through the automatic sliding doors to the emergency room, an anxious look on his face. He wrapped his arms around her, and Rossi winced. Hi, Dad. He relaxed his grip. What'd you do to yourself? I crashed. He put his hands on her shoulders and held her at arm's length. My Rossi? Crash? I don't believe it. She was sabotaged, Matthew said, but she still won. Rossi's dad looked at Matthew, his eyes widening in surprise at his appearance. He turned his attention back to Rossi. That sounds more like it. He scanned her up and down, probably taking in her dirt-stained, ripped clothing and many scrapes and scratches. Are you okay? She nodded. I thought maybe you'd spent the night at the Navarro's place when I got home late last night, but Mrs. Navarro informs me that's not the case. He looked at Rossi expectantly, but she stayed quiet. She says you have quite a story to tell me. He raked a hand through his dark hair. About where you were last night. A woman in scrubs walked into the waiting room just then and called Rossi's name. Rossi looked at her father. Do you want to go in with me? I thought I'd at least stay long enough to make sure you're okay, you told her. He glanced at us. But first I want to have a word with these two scrubby boys. Matthew shifted in his seat as Rossi disappeared through the doors with the nurse. Uh-oh, he muttered. Mr. Scott stood over us, his rumpled suit covered in dust smudges from hugging his daughter. You two look like you've been in battle. Matthew stuck his chest out. We have. Mr. Scott rubbed at his forehead. You were with Rossi last night? We both nodded. He let out a tired sigh. I don't even know who you are. We're Rossi's friends, I told him. I didn't know she'd made friends. I think there's a lot you don't know, I said. He stopped rubbing at his forehead. He looked shocked at my statement. He opened his mouth to say something, but a sweaty, pink-cheeked baby let out a scream a few seats down. Matthew and I jumped at the sound. As much as I'd like to stay here talking to you two, Mr. Scott said over the wails of the baby, I'd better go see how Rossi's doing before I'm needed back at work. He started to walk away, but I summoned all my courage and cried out, She needs you too, you know. I was kind of impressed with the level of attitude I'd managed to convey. He halted. Then he turned around and walked back to us. He looked down at me. I don't think you know her very well. My Rossi is the strongest person I know. She can fend for herself. She doesn't need anybody. The mom shoved a pacifier into the baby's mouth and it finally quieted. I stared at Mr. Scott. Needing her dad doesn't make her weak. His head shot back in surprise at my words. The baby spit the pacifier out and it landed at his feet. He stared at it a moment before picking it up and handing it back to the woman, who mumbled a tired thanks. He turned back to me, a pained look on his face, as the baby started wailing again. Thanks for the tip, he finally said softly before rejoining his daughter on the other side of the doors. Headway, progress, especially when circumstances make it slow or difficult.